Hello, this is Demon Phoenix, and I am back again, continuing my Deathmatch walkthrough. Not walkthrough as much, I've already done a Deathmatch walkthrough. This is my No Armour playthrough, so I'm just going to be continuing with that. Now, I just finished the first lot of Kira's quests, the Tower of Mice and all that kind of thing. So I can either do a favour for a friend, or I can try and speak to the pillar and do the stuff with him for Forefathers Eve. Now, I believe if I do the quest with Kira, then that will end up with me being on Fyke Isle, and I can just meditate and do the quest for the pillar. So that's how I'm going to go about doing things right now. I'm just going to see if I've got the audio set up and everything. I hope it's all coming through, which, you know, it hopefully should be. And then we can carry on with that. So let me just have a quick look. But this starts off with going to get a few different things from ingredients that you need for Kira, so I'll be carrying on with that. I've also been kind of thinking a little bit about how I want to progress the build, and I've got a few ability points available. There's a few things we can go with. I can either go with alchemy, or I can go a little more science focused, because at some point I do want to get the Ard sweep with Ancient Lesson Decoction, which is one of my favourite mechanics, and I think will actually still fit extremely well with what I've been doing so far on the playthrough. It's obviously a very sort of dodge focused playthrough. You need to avoid taking hits. And Ancient Lesson, but Ard Decoction is one of my favourite things for doing that. So that's how we're thinking of progressing the build at the minute, but like I say, I haven't really decided. I'm just going to chill on these ability points for a minute. Everything's going alright so far. Do have a few deaths, which I was a little disappointed in, but I'll not be too hard on myself, seeing as how we are playing with no armour. And one of the other things I want to get is the Superior Tawny Owl, which I haven't come across yet, and is one of the things that, you know, to be able to get. So, don't need to kill these things, but I'm going to anyway, so I'll just try and take them out. Get a few hits on this thing. And that should be alright. It looks like I do need to get my sword sorted as well, though, as it appears to be a little damaged, so I'll have to sort that out as well. I think that's my silver sword, based on the actual graphic there. Minute. Oof, taking some damage in a hurry. Okay, let's back off a little bit. So the problem with these things is that when they're a little bit higher level on no armor, it can cause a bit of problem, so I best be a little more respectful of these, and make sure I'm making good use of my potions. Dodge around a bit while I get those up. Right, okay, so now the potions are in place, I can use quite a little bit more, and also try and burn them and make a bit of use of that. And obviously we've got the swallow potion as well, so we can use that to heal up if needed. So again, just being a little bit careful with what we're doing, and making sure that we're using that correctly. But one of the big advantages of having the acquired tolerance skill is that we do have more toxicity to be able to use for these things. So more damage, and I have a lot more toxicity to be able to heal and do everything else. So the swallow's going to heal me up this there, dodge the drowner, and now I just need one more hit on the warthog, and she should be dead. Which I managed to get, so yeah. Oh dear, never mind. Anyway, managed to take those things out. Didn't actually need to take them out for the quest, but you know, I like killing monsters, so. Let's have a quick look at what it was that we needed repairing, and it was indeed my silver sword. I've picked up a few kits now, so I can actually just use that as well, so it's always good. Still got gourmet equipped, so I can still make use of these food items to heal out of combat and everything else like that. So I've got to make use of those while I've got them going. Brilliant skill, obviously, gourmet, as we said before. Early on, it's one of the really good skills, and I've still got a slot that I can dedicate to it at the moment. And it just provides really convenient healing. Instead of having to have the food items slotted the whole time, it provides a lot of healing, and it just lasts for so long as well. It's extremely good. So yeah, that's something always something to bear in mind as a potential skill to get early game, and has proven extremely useful and convenient so far in this one as well. So just stuff up. And this is a quick little quest. Might be able to kill this rot fiend in one go if I can knock him down with hard. So, but he managed to dodge there, so I'll just try and hit him a bit more with this. Sound intensity and hard is a very good way of knocking things down as well. This guy is dead. Right, so after we've got everything sorted here, got another necrophage hide, so if I did want to sell that, I could get some extra money there as well, so that's useful. And I need to just find Kira's loot, which is there. And off we go. Gonna go back just there. I've already cleared this area out, so nothing to grab here. And just ride Roach back to Kira. A lot of the time, if you are on deathmatch, even if you're not doing a no damage playthrough and stuff like that, there's no real need to engage enemies if they aren't in the quest. Like that guy, there was no need for me to take that guy out, but never mind. Just get used to fighting things sometimes. So yeah, I mean, just avoid combat. You know, if it's not something particularly important, that's no problem at all. If it's not relating to the quest and you're not going to get anything particularly good out of it, there's no real need, so you can just avoid combat like that. So I was also scheming about how I could maybe get the Ancient Lesson Decoction early, but that would mean taking on the Hearts of the Woods quest, which is a level 22 quest, so I'm at. But I was thinking of the things that I could do there, and if there was any way that I could maybe do that and get the Ancient Lesson Decoction early. I did get mutations at level 20 one time. I did a video about that. So maybe I could get something together and figure that out. But I think that would probably be more trouble than it's worth, so I'm not necessarily going to do that. But we'll see. In this particular playthrough, I didn't use the starting armor and the Griffin School techniques. If I was going to do a no damage run or something like insane like that, then that's what I'd probably have to do. Because Griffin School techniques lets you keep Quen up, and it makes it a lot easier to survive. You have to dodge a lot less because you can just use Quen a lot more often, and I feel like that would you know, really make things a little bit easier. So okay, so alright, so just got to race Kira here, and I'll be doing this quest, and then we'll be skipping ahead, and after we finish this, we'll be doing Forefathers Eve. I'll have to try and remember which options they are to avoid fighting Kira at the end of this quest, because there are specific options that you can choose, and they're not all too obvious. I do forget sometimes which is which, so I'll have to pay attention. And I believe as we ride past here, you can also find the Greedy God mission, which is a level 6 quest at this little set of ruins there. So I'll have to come back there later as well. Fairly easy one, and you can avoid combat altogether in that one too. So anyway, we finished this bit, and I'll just go through everything else here. Skipping through everything, like I say, I've said in the other parts of the walkthrough or playthrough, just skipping through on these because I've played the games quite a few times, so not that fussed about watching all the dialogue and everything there. So go do 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 do. On we go. I don't know what actually happens if you skip this bit. I don't know if it still continues and you can speak to Kira. Possibly. I'm not really sure. I chose this option because I know that this one works out. So let's have a look. Nope, that's the wrong way. Need to find where Kira's gone. It is. I think it's this way? No, I don't know. Well, I'll find where it is in a minute. Oh, this is annoying. Oh, there you go. Off we go. Ah, I could have kept the shoes on. Is this bit?
Shame. Could have kept the
Uh-huh.
shoes on. Now where's that Cinderella gone to?
Where indeed?
Found me. Congratulations.
Do I?
Congratulations indeed. Right, so skip through all this, blah 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 blah. Got to get to Fyke Island. Da 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 da. Feeling sleepy all of a sudden. Then we got to get back to the island and finish off this quest, and go on to Forefather's Eve. Get level 10 there. That gives us another slot. So again, this is where I'd need to choose what I was going to do. So I could either go with a little bit of signs and make my way to Ard Sweep, which would take 7 points and then 9 in total when you put the points into Ard Sweep. Or I could go with Poison Blades, which is also very useful. Or I could go with another combat skill. It takes 7 points to get down to Razor Focus, which is another really good one. Because then you would start with an adrenaline point at the start of each fight, and you could also put 1 point to get into Rend then as well. I want to avoid maybe using Rend and Whirl a little bit, because I use those an awful lot. So I'd have to think about that. Haven't quite decided what I want to do yet. I'm staying away from the general skills. Some of those are extremely powerful, but I've avoided those ones deliberately already. So now, do we have a boat anywhere close? Because I am not swimming across that lake. Hell no. There's a boat down this side. All these ones there already. So right, make my way down to the boat, and then I'll head across to the island. So yeah, there's a couple of ways that I'm thinking about taking on some of the the Ancient Lesson and things like that. There are a couple of potential ways I could go about it. It depends on if they can be inflicted with poisoning or bleeding. I know they can definitely be burnt, but without having Griffin School techniques, it'll be difficult for me to get enough sign intensity to be able to burn them like that, even with the Foglet Decoction or anything else. Foglet Decoction, it nearly always counts. I think the game is actually bugged so that anywhere apart from Tucson, it actually does count as being times. So you can pretty much always use the Foglet Decoction for 25% sign intensity boost, which is quite a lot early on in the game. It's a nice little boost, particularly when you are trying to burn enemies, and use that extra little bit for that. So that's useful. Now, where is this quest? There you go. So yeah, I mean, that's one way to go. I could get Delusion and then Exploding Shield, and getting those two would have the 6 points necessary to get to Ard Sweep, which is again a very useful skill. A little bit short on ability points to do that just yet, so I'd have to take that into consideration. The other alternative is to just put the points into Poison Blades, and that would unlock either Tissue Transmutation or Protective. Again, those are skills that I often use. They're skills that are a big part of my what I call the Uber build, my OP, Rend, Whirl and Tank build, the best build in the game. Protective Coating is absolutely key to that. And with a No Armour playthrough, whilst I could use that and the Arrowcast Decoction to mitigate the damage that we're taking, that's pretty much the same as I do on a lot of playthroughs. So I'm thinking that maybe I shy away from that a little bit and just stick with basic alchemy and combat. So that's something to consider. Just going to apply some Necrophage oil and do a bit more damage to these, because the ghouls are indeed necrophages. Get fire damage on there, and that'll deal a good chunk. And then just get Quen back up, focus on dodging again, and take these out. This one should go down pretty quickly, and that one's now poisoned as well, and that one's bleeding. So this is the advantage of having the Divana Runestone with the Viper Swords, and which is why they're so incredibly important early on, is because they can inflict poison with the actual latent abilities of the blade, and then also you can put a Divana runestone in to inflict bleeding. So you have a reasonable chance with using fast strikes and getting a lot of hit to be inflicting either bleeding or poisoning or both. And then you can stack burning with Igni on top of that as well. So damage over time is really important on deathmatch because those are based on the actual HP of the enemies. And so it doesn't matter that the enemies have more health on deathmatch, they still take proportionally the same amount of damage. So that's important. So let's see if I can remember what which one it is. Let's have a look. Can I figure this out? Right. Let me have a look. Think it's this one. Bed bugs, bloody bed bugs, Gerald. Right. Okay, I think that's right. Yeah, go to Kaer Morhen. Stop being a pain. Yeah. There you go. Sorted. I'm pretty sure that's how she survives and ends up at Kaer Morhen, so that should be good. Okay, sorted. That is also necessary. It's also necessary for you to have those sorts of options if you're trying to get the achievements, if you're playing the game for the first time. One of the things is to have everybody meet up at Kaer Morhen. So if you chose the option that's going to end up with... What's his name? The School of the Viper Witcher from Witcher 2. Seriously, what's his name? Letho. So you have to have saved Letho to have everybody together. So if Letho's in the game and you've chosen the option that ends up with him being at Raiden Manor, then you have to spare him. And if you are doing the quest, you have to do Kira's quest and then end up like that, so that she ends up at Kaer Morhen. Now what I've done here, just a quick side quest, segue while I'm in this actual combat, is I've used the enhanced Petri filter to increase my sound intensity a bit, and that's letting me knock these rock fiends over, and the explosion from killing them doesn't kill you if you knock them over with hard first for some reason. So that's a very easy and convenient way to kill them if you can knock them over in one, and that's why I was doing that. So again, killing the rock fiends while you're here is a good idea. So as I was saying before, these necrophage hides are quite valuable. So as I was saying before, it's a necessary thing if you want to get the achievements for everybody being at Kaer Morhen. You need to have Letho and Kira both survive and go there. Now I believe I chose the option where I said that I killed Letho when I started this playthrough and spoke to and that should mean that Letho's not there, and I always do that because if I'm replaying again, I don't want to do Letho's mission because it's quite protracted and I don't like having failed quests in my log. So I normally just do the makes the Raiden Manor side quest a lot shorter. So hopefully when I go there this time I've done that correctly and I won't have to bother doing that long protracted side quest, because it doesn't experience and it does take a little time. It's very interesting the first time. It's good to see Letho's interactions and things like that. So I'm not saying don't do that the first time you play, but on subsequent playthroughs I normally just try and avoid it. So okay, so now I just got to go and meet the pillar. I'll meditate to midnight, which will helpfully restock all of my potions as well. And I'm just going to put the oils on my blades because these fights use the necrophage oil and the hangman's venom. Later on a couple of enemies turn up there as well. Okay, so just see if the Pella's about, which he won't be yet because it needs to be midnight, and then I'll go ahead and do this quest. I can either go to Novigrad and continue the main quests after I've done a couple of these side quests, or if it's better, I could always actually try and go to Skellige as well. Just about the sort of level where I can do that, so that may be something that I look into. I do love going to Skellige, getting all of the places of power there and everything a bit early. That's always extremely useful. So I'm also at the level where I can use some of the broadhead bolts that I created, so I'll be doing those as well. And the good thing about these broadhead bolts is that they inflict those, so I can use them as well. And just before I get into combat, because I don't have any food in my quick use slots, I'll just use one of those first. Again, another advantage of having gourmet is that you can do that as well. So I'll just creep Aiden up if I can, just for when the enemies actually turn up. And if I can do that, then I can still keep my Quen up as well, and have Erden and be able to use Igni still on these things. So managed to inflict bleeding there, which is good. And when the wartags hit you with that attack, as you may have noticed, it's more difficult to attack, and you can't use potions and things like that. So the wartags are really irritating, and just be very mindful of trying to dodge their attacks, because otherwise they can be a real... And dodge when they're throwing things like that. And she actually just stunned the Drowner there, if you noticed. So that's quite interesting that that can happen. So again, the same way that you can use human archers against their fellow companions, you can use the wartags to stun the Drowners and get a free hit on them whilst they're not able to hit you themselves. So just I can. And again, every time I get burning on an enemy, you want to leave it, because hitting them will actually make the burning go away. So leave it until they've been burning for a while. And the advantage of burning that makes it so good with Igni is that whilst the enemy's burning, you can stand back and you don't have to guard. So you will have your stamina regenerating a lot quicker, and then you can cast Igni again. So again, if you're using Griffin School techniques immediately, they're brilliant. You can often burn them like that, and that's really useful. So this is why we put the oil on our sword for the steel sword as well. It's because we wanted to kill these guys. Just used Axe E by accident, which is a bit of a shame, because I wanted to be keeping my stamina regeneration as high as possible for these guys. Now the parry is extremely useful if you can get the timing for that as well, which is what I've done there. Just be careful against sword wielding enemies. Every time they block, it will take a hit of your blade oil as well. So each time they block, it counts as one use of a blade oil. So just try and bear that in mind, so you don't have to get things blocked too often. And that'll be a little bit better, because then you don't have to be reapplying your oils as often. So again, this is why I said a couple episodes ago, or through a couple of different episodes, there are certain oils that I try and get as much as early as possible, namely the enhanced Hangman's Venom, and the other one that's extremely useful is the enhanced Necrophage oil and the enhanced Beast oil, because you fight a lot of those types of enemies. Really important. Now we can take out these wraiths fairly easily. Use the Spectre oil again, but you see that was already 6. Only had a couple of uses there of the Spectre oil left, and that was because the Spectre oil is only 20 uses, whereas each enhanced oil is 40. So you want to try and get the enhanced oils, or at least I do when I use the oils all the time. Want to try and get the enhanced oils and the superior oils as early as possible. There is a skill called Fixative, which will let you have the oils for longer uses, depending on how many points you have. So it can increase it by either 33%, 66%, or then infinite, so that the oils never run out. Until you apply, the oils don't run out until you apply another oil. So that's a useful one as well. But it's more of a luxury skill than a necessary skill, because you can always just go back into the menu at any time and reapply the oils. It's more of a convenience thing than anything else. It can be very useful if you're fighting tons of enemies at once, like if you want to take on the Nilfgaard camp because you're a bit insane like I did, or if you want to do hand spaces as well. So because they have a lot of the same kind of enemy in a very short space of time, namely human enemies. So it can be a good idea for that. I tend to get fixative a little bit later on if I'm doing a normal playthrough as one of the alchemy skills, mainly because there's nothing that I particularly prefer or need when I'm trying to get down to killing spree on the last row. So it's good as like a sort of filler or convenient skill, and I sometimes use it if I'm not trying to optimize everything 100%. So right, so I'm just going to go and do this part of the Peller's quest, and then I'll be carrying on. So again, the options are I can either do some subquests, or I can either go to Novigrad, or I can try and go to Skellige a little early. I'm quite tempted to try and go to Skellige. I would prefer to have poison blades for that, but if I use poison blades, use the ability points up to get poison blades, then the problem with that is that it's potentially going to mean that I'll not get these signs until much later. If I'm wanting to do that Ard lesson, which is one of my, like I say, one of my favourite things. I know I keep going on about it, but it's a very useful tactic, and I really like Ard Sweep with that because it only uses half your stamina bar, so you can use it very often, and because each use of it increases your stamina regeneration for the rest of the fight, you can use it both for utility and for also increasing your stamina regeneration so that you get to keep Quen up a lot easier, and all of those things are going to benefit this playthrough. I used it a lot in my New Game Plus playthrough from the extra points that I could put after I'd completed the bulk of the build. I actually used the Ard Sweep Ancient Lesson Decoction for a lot of that, and in many ways I felt it was even better than the normal uses of my Uber build, and I really wanted to just, you know, incorporate that into this playthrough as well. So can't recommend that heartily enough. It's extremely useful. And again, you can see that I'm making a lot of use of potions, and it allows me to be honestly a little less careful in fights, because I know that I'll have the skills to be able to get extra sign intensity using the enhanced Petri filter and things like that. Can finish fights a lot quicker if I'm using things like enhanced thunderbolt, and I have a better chance of burning things. So burn on that one, but the other two have exploded, so this will be almost dead. And that's the Rot Fiends down again. So
Swamps kept Ambrose's body in good shape.
okay, so gotta get rid of that. You know, no, I'm talking absolute nonsense, but like where he says avoid that fog if you value your life, this is actually the Swamp Thing contract, and this is one of the most dangerous contracts at lower level. There's this and Jenny of the Woods, where they will actually probably give you a good test. I mentioned that in my Death March walkthrough, that these are ones that you have to be a bit more careful, so gotta watch out for that. And there we go. So I'll not be taking this one on now, because I probably would die a few things that I want in place before I take on that contract. So yeah, there's no need either, because I'm only level 10 at the moment and it's a level 12 contract, so not really necessary for me to do it right now. I'm not going to be as stringent as about doing all of the contracts and everything as I am in a normal playthrough, but I haven't really decided yet. I'm enjoying this playthrough at the time, but I don't want it to just be I don't want it to be, whoa, easy tiger. Let me just do this first and then continue the commentary later. I wonder if I can swap my bombs mid-fight. I always forget that because I never really use bombs that often, so I can. So whilst I've got all these enemies bunched up, I'm going to try and get them all together. I'm going to put an Erden down so I can slow them all down, and then when they're all together I can try and hit them with bombs and set them all burning, and also try and poison them as well. Okay, so I've got all that going. And try and hurt all those. I don't think the drowners can actually get poisoned because they don't seem to be taking any damage from that. But always good to remind yourself. And we'll set a few more of these going as well. Again, that Gore Mage is so convenient. Instead of having to repeatedly use all of the every so often, I can just get all of these things all together, and then just concentrate on Gourmet keeping me healthy. So got Dragon's Dream as well, and I'm just trying to struggle to find enough space to use it at the minute. Alright, so now I've got the Cloud of Dragon's Dream, I can try and keep them all grouped together. And then again, just try and get a few burning at the same time. So if you can get them few burning, it allows me to get some hits in on the others. And get a good chunk of damage. I also blew up the Poison Cloud. I thought I'd be just out of range there, but the Poison Cloud's still lingering from the Devil's Puffball bomb. Actually worked out there a little bit. So again, just whittling them down, keep them a distance, and even though that's a lot of drowners and I've got upscaling on so they're all at my level, then able to deal with those eventually anyway. Right, so taking all those out, that was a good little challenge. Always fun to fight big groups of stuff. And again, just appreciating the use of Gourmet there, because it's like one less thing to worry about when you're in the middle of combat. And just destroy this as well. I'm going to kill this drowned dead. This will happen sometimes with the monster nests, where after you can actually, after you defeat the monster nest, there'll be one left, and defeating that will give you a little bit of bonus experience as well. Again, just get the fire damage, and that lets your stamina regenerate a bit. Get the counter attack. Sometimes when they're dodging like that, it's very difficult to get the burning effect on them. So you want to wait until they're sort of stood still, if at all possible. That was what I blew up before. It was the that gas that was already there. I didn't think it would have been my Devil's Puffball. So anyway, loot all the stuff from here. Got enough to make the enhanced Maribor potion as well, which is quite useful. Like I say, fair few things to be going on with there, a few things that I can use. That is one of the monster nests that I've already defeated, looted and all that kind of stuff. I don't believe there was anything else left around here, from what I remember. I'll just check that there's no chest on this island, because sometimes you get chests in really random places. These are a little higher level, so I'm just going to my distance. I don't want to actually be fighting these yet. Oh, maybe I can do. Let's try it. If they prove a little tough, then I can always run away. So they're doing a fair amount of damage. I'm not doing tons to them, so. And I haven't meditated to get my potions back, so this might be a bit more than I can handle, but we can try it out. This is the slight problem with having just the regular Tornial, because I haven't been able to find the enhanced Tornial yet. Is that obviously I'll just use Swallow, touch that up a bit. The problem is that you only get 3 uses of Tornial, whereas it's my most used potion, as you may have noticed through this playthrough. So that's a slight problem. I think one just leapt into the water, and even though they are called drowners, somehow died when he jumped into the water, which will happen to other enemies as well, but that's quite funny. Never mind. I'll just try and get this one knocked over if I can, but sadly not. Again, when they're in certain animations, or when they're stood in certain ways, like when they're dodging back themselves, when they do the little jump that's like your dodge, you'll not be able to knock them over, so stood on sort of flat footing and catch them like that. And again, that just knocked him back, so I don't know if it's an actual dodge animation they do, but if you ever get that animation where they jump backwards, then you'll never be able to knock them flat. So that's something to bear in mind if you're using a build that's a little heavier on Ard. So anyway, took out some level 15 drowners there. As you can see, you can normally overcome most enemies as long as they're not Red Skull enemies. The first death that I did in the playthrough, a couple of episodes, tried taking on a quest and I couldn't remember what level it was, and I was the level 11 ghouls were just red skull enemies and doing a lot of damage, and whilst I could survive and hit them, I couldn't out damage their own regenerative capabilities, because stuff like that is higher when they're red skull enemies as well. So you need to bear that in mind, just when you're playing on deathmatch especially. Right. With getting a few things repaired, but first things first, I'll just fast travel here, then I'll sort these out. So I'm going to get some stuff repaired, speak to the pillar, finish these quests, see if he has anything more for sale. I think he just has the glyphs and runestones diagram, so I don't think he has any actual alchemy recipes, which is a bit of a shame because I really want that enhanced Tornial, but never mind. I think this is actually near the area where you do Wild at Heart as well, which is around this level. But I'll just skip that for now. Let's have a look actually. Yeah, this is in these same woods, so I might as well trigger this quest first. After I speak to the pillar, I can just carry on with that quest right after. Just avoid all the dogs, because I don't want to be fighting them yet. The dogs are pretty pointless to fight after you've got your basic oils, because you get the dog tallow from them, but not a lot else. You can sell the hides, but they're not particularly valuable. It's more when you get to Skellige and you can fight white wolves that they're more valuable, so that's a little bit better. But I'm not really bothered about doing that right now. Get my stuff repaired, might as well while I'm here. Shouldn't cost too much because I'm still pretty low level and they shouldn't have taken much damage, so
I'll take a
maybe sell some stuff as well. Yeah, so nothing particularly interesting with this guy. Not doing too bad for inventory space, so I don't need to be doing that right yet either. Nothing I particularly need to be getting rid of right now. Only 93 to repair everything there, so I might as well do that. And off we go again. So I'll speak to Neelan, get this quest sorted. And then I can speak to the relevant people before I go and speak to the pillar. Have you looked for her? Yes, Geralt. He's looked for her. Jeez. Anyway. Off we go. Hello, Marguerite, you silly bint. Move. If she traps me in this house and it glitches now, I'm going to be so mad. Anyway. Nothing particularly useful there, but again, always worth stealing from peasants, why not? Okay. Talk to these people first, and then we'll see how it goes. Off we go. It's quite an interesting one as well, really. So yeah. Interesting little quest. I actually, this is one of my enduring memories of The Witcher 3. This is one of the first fights that I found really difficult, and that was even when I was just playing on normal difficulty when I first did it. And I didn't realise that werewolves are a lot more powerful if you fight them at certain times of night. So when it says to meditate, I just meditated to midnight because it was a nice round number. But I believe that they actually get bonuses to their regeneration of health, and so I was finding it really difficult to out damage them at the time. So. Always something to bear in mind. I'm pretty sure that's right. I'm not 100% on that, so don't quote me. But that, like I say, werewolves are stronger at midnight than other times of night. So when it says to meditate there, just meditate to a little bit of a different time, and you can have a slightly easier time of it if you fight it at sort of 9 or 10ish, or in the early hours of the morning. So I don't think he's got anything else to sell, but I'll just have a check. Pretty sure he didn't have any of the alchemy recipes, just the yeah, these kind of things. I do want the burning Dasbog runestone one if he has that, because I might try a few tactics to try and take down some enemies early, and the Dasbog runestone can be a good idea for that as well, if it's an enemy that can be burnt. So, because then I can use any lesser ones that I've got to create those instead of buying them, because it costs like a lot to always try and make those from lesser versions of the same stone, or to make those lesser versions first from scratch, and it'll still work out a little bit quicker, a little bit cheaper sometimes. So a few drowners down there, but this isn't the way that I want to be going, so I'll just grab this mistletoe. Always a good source of mistletoe, that from the Pellars, the graveyard near the Pellars. I can. So again, one of the things that I try and do is, I've used up a lot of my potions here, but I just like to have a look at what I've actually got left, and then try and make use of those potions before I meditate, if at all possible. So here, I'm going to be meditating soon anyway, so I've already used up these potions, so might as well use the Mariborans fight a little bit easier, and use those before I meditate, before I fight the werewolf. So again, the Foglet decoction is boosting my sign intensity at the minute, and I have the Thunderbolt available and the Maribor Forest, so I can build more adrenaline, and just use that versus the wolves as well. And I have tons of toxicity available because of the acquired, again, one of the absolute best skills in the game. So the burning is a little more dependable now, because I do have the Foglet decoction active, and I'm still healing with Gourmet, so just got to be a bit careful, because I have enemy upscaling on. A pack of wolves does actually prove to be like quite a big challenge, and you've got to be quite on point with your dodging. So one of the other things you can do is actually use a Erden Circle to slow them down a bit, which makes them easier to deal with. Just about managed to take these out, so it should be no problem. And you can also parry. It's not really parrying, because you know they're attacking you with something else instead of a sword, but you can use parry at the same time, like I did on that last wolf, and just tap the guard left trigger, or L2, as they're attacking, and get a counter attack on them as well, like I just did there. Okay. No bitch, leaving her alone. It's so interesting, the depth that this game goes into, and the little things that they have is like I say, such an interesting thing. Like, if you were to agree with what's her name, Marguerite there, if you were to agree with her, you would think that it would work out best for everybody, because you know, you wouldn't end up having to fight Neelan when you transform. They can just live happily ever after and whatever. But if you do actually take that option and then come back to the village later, then you can hear the villagers talking about how Marguerite disappeared as well. So she still does, unfortunately, end up get what's coming to her. So it's pretty interesting. Now, if I remember, this is like a really tiny thing that you have to find, and it's really irritating. So it's like a tuft of something. Oh, you find this first, and then you have to find the tuft of fur.
I can't get up there. Maybe I'll find something else on the ground.
Which is really annoying.
Get up there. Maybe find something else on the ground.
So there's like just this tiny little bit here, and this is what has the scent to follow. But right, so just got to follow that. Then we'll be able to do this one. So again, this fight with Neelan can prove quite tricky, so you have to be a bit careful with this.
Man's clothes. Shredded, but no sign of blood. Who rips their own clothes off? Leaves them in the woods.
Who indeed, Geralt?
Looks like a hunter's
How bizarre. Let's fight this bear before we do anything else. Gonna be meditating before this fight anyway, so might as well fight this thing. So I've not been able to burn it there with the first few, so I'll just use up the enhanced Petri as well. But bears are normally alright because you only ever fight them really one-on-one, that I remember. So it's okay. Nice to take that out. And again, the bear fat is useful because you generally need one of those or more, one or more of those, to be able to get the enhanced oils. They're normally used for that as well. Right, so at 9:36 AM, so no chance of being ambushed right now. So we should be alright. Then I'll meditate and make use of a couple of different potions. Cat is actually quite useful if you've been able to make the cat potion before you do this as well. Just because you're fighting purely in the dark. And if you're ever holding a torch like this, because you hold them in one hand, you cannot use the strong attack because it takes two hands to swing the sword as the strong attack. So it's quite useful just to have that available and to use cat instead. So search the lair, not been able to find anything apart from those couple of chests and things like that. Nothing particularly interesting there. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put the torch away and then I'm going to meditate, use cat and a couple of the other things, and then hopefully be able to take this thing out. So we will need beast oil on our steel sword because you have to fight some wolves at the same time, which can be pretty tricky. And we'll need cursed oil for that werewolf. One of the other things that's really useful versus the werewolves is the moon dust bomb. It stops them regenerate well, so I'm going to make use of that. Quick tip, if you're ever struggling with a battle, you can meditate in the menu instead of using your sign wheel. And before you come out of the menu and anything's changed, so before I've come out of the menu and been attacked or anything like that, I can use these here. So just going to use the blizzard first of all, so that combat will slow down when I'm able to kill the wolves at the start. So that'll give me a bit of extra time to be able to kill the wolves, and then I can focus on killing the werewolf after that, hopefully. So should have the fight coming shortly with me having meditated, and if not, I'll just wait. There you go. So we'll try and burn him first of all, and he normally summon wolves after that. So we've got the fire damage there, and we need to switch to the we actually seem to be able to damage these ones with the silver sword. So these are like with wolves that you can damage with the silver sword, so you don't have to switch between them, because that can be really tricky. Right, so I've inflicted him with bleeding. Try and get the wolves damaged as much as possible there. Oh, and the thunderbolt. So I want to be making as quick work as possible of these things. I've just realised that even though I did say my tip about using things in the menu first, I have forgotten to actually use any food items, and you can't do that when you're actually in battle, I don't think. So let's have a look. Right, so I'm just going to put those there just so I can use that first. So weirdly, even though you can't use the foods whilst you're in the menu like that, you can switch them in for other stuff and then use those. So that's a bit strange, but never mind. Switch back to that Petri filter just so I can have a bit of utility out of that for burning things if needed. Got the wolf burning there again. And I just need to take the wolves out first, and then we should be absolutely fine. So once I've got those, I can concentrate on fighting the werewolf itself. They're both dead. And you can rate in there as well. So I'm not going to do anything about it just yet, because I should be able to get his health down to trigger the cutscene. And then I'll use Moondust in the second part of fighting him. Because that's when it's more of a problem, when you have to take down his full health bar again. Unless you choose to let him kill Marguerite. Which is obviously a problem. So just going to let that build back up a bit. And he's done a lot of damage there, but that's finally put him down. And then you have this little cutscene. Decide what you want to do. Now you could decide that actually she probably deserves to die, but I don't know. There's no point her dying still. I don't know. It's a difficult quest. I wouldn't argue with you for whatever decision you made. So you can let him kill her if you want, but just can't really in good conscience let him kill somebody. So before he starts getting too much of his health back, I'm going to try and nail him with the Moondust Bomb. Use the quick aim. So I think I just about got him with that there. And that's pretty useful because it means that you... Oh, hold on one sec. It means that you can stop him regenerating and take him down with the bleeding, poisoning and everything else. And so he dies there. Yeah, me too. But I mean, you can't really just let him kill her. I don't know. Maybe you can. You'd make the decision that it takes. So anyway, interesting quest there. Another good one to take him out. Another interesting little side quest. I think we've got another bear to pick up here, yeah. So I'm able to burn that one straight away, so that'll do a massive chunk of damage before anything else. And then with the beast oil that I've still got on, it can do a bit of extra damage and inflict. And the burning and the bleeding stack, so you can see they just take a massive amount of damage. And that's why damage over time is so effective on Deathmarch. So quick couple of bear fat there. We've now got the key to the shack as well. Not the key to the shack, you can come in here earlier and grab all this stuff, but there's the hunter's key. And Marguerite won't talk to you, but you know, that's gratitude for you. It's really interesting. Not going to do it right now, but you can. Grab all this stuff, including a couple of useful little items there. And then you can grab those as well for a little bit of extra silver, because that's what the key unlocks. So pretty interesting little side quest. So again, I don't really feel like making a start on the Novigrad stuff yet. I may do. Let's have a look. Fall of House Reardon, that should be a fairly short one, or may just go and do that. And the Shrieker contract, that one's pretty boring. It's just like taking on a Basilisk, not so bad. And then Woodland Beast is a really easy, but again slightly time consuming one. So nothing I'm particularly bothered about doing. I mean, it may just be because I've played the game so many times, because pretty much everything has something interesting in it in this game the first time around. But I'm not overly bothered about them right now, so. What's that? Are these Neckers or are these Drowners? Looks like a Drowner maybe. Might take them out anyway. Because why not? So again, if you can get one burn in, then you can... And so this is why there are positives and negatives to sign builds and combat builds. And you might want to be like a jack of all trades. You might want to be a master of one type of fighting. So you can play pretty much however you want in the first playthrough. The New Game Plus is a little bit more restricted, because the way that sign intensity works and the way it works for damage intensity, sign intensity, and particularly enemy sign resistance does get pretty annoying. So there are only a couple of real viable sign builds, and mostly if you're wanting to use a bit more signs, I would probably go with more of a hybrid build, so you still have like a lot of damage with your blade to fall back on, because a lot of enemies are going to need that. But there's a lot of good stuff you can do. It can be extremely effective right up until you get to sort of Hearts of Stone. So don't be discouraged from using a sort of sign style playthrough if you want to be a little more signs heavy. So lots of ways you can go, and that's why this game's so interesting, and a lot of diverse ways you can play it as well. Right, okay, so I think I'll go and do the Fall of House Raiden at the minute, just before it's like way out of level. You never really want to out level anything by more than 5 levels if you can help it, because you will get a lot less. You will get a lot less experience if you do that. So I'm just going to meditate first again. Got a lot of Alcahest, a lot of Dwarven Spirit, so I can meditate whenever I want and get all of those bombs and potions back, and indeed decoctions if you're using any of those. And they can be really useful, really useful. So make good use of those. I would recommend that, you know, experiment with alchemy and see how much of it you want to use, because it can be a really extremely useful tool. Now, just a quick thing, if you ever fast travel to Downwarren, there's a couple of enemies that you can watch out for. If you're short of bear fat, there will normally be a bear up on this slope. I'm just going to actually I'll take these down. I've still got 2 uses of Thunderbolt and Petri Filter to be able to use, so I'm going to try and make use of those first. So there's a bear you can fight here, level 12, so if that's not too high you can take that on. And that being the case, you can normally take this out and get looking to try and get them, save from having to buy one for oh dear, that did a lot of damage. A lot of, if you're looking to save money and make the enhanced oils and things like that. I do need to be a little bit careful here, because they can still do a lot of damage, obviously. So, but the burning, sorry, but I was able to take it out anyway. So there's that. That's a good reliable source of bear fat. And at the bottom of the hill, there's a collection of a few little huts on the map. And for things about that is it has an Alghoul. And the Alghoul can drop lesser red mutagens. So it is level 14, so you need to be a little bit careful with it. So I'm just going to have to watch out for that myself. Going to get my adrenaline boosted a little bit there. And use the necrophage oil again. And these things will put spikes up, so you might want to make sure that you using Axii before you attack them, because they can do that. So using Axii will put the spikes away, and you don't want to attack them while the spikes are out, because they will do like a ton of damage to you when you attack them with the spikes out. So just bear in mind that when you're fighting these things. Again, Axii really useful on something that you fight one-on-one. And you can sometimes get a lesser red instead of a lesser green from those. So this thing will respawn if you fast travel a lot of the time. So you can fight it a couple of times, or have to fast travel to this area. You can fast travel to Downwarren and then try and beat it and see if it gives you a lesser red. In one of the earlier episodes I did actually mention that whilst you're you can do a similar sort of thing on the other side of Velen. So here you can go from Downwarren, fight the Alghoul here. And one of the other fast travel points over here, which is the Forest Hut, you can fight in Arakas. Will sometimes give you a lesser red mutagen as well. Now there are very few places you can actually get those in the Velen area. You mostly get them when you go to Skellige later on. So it's good to know that there are some sources that you can get them from, because otherwise, you know, it can be virtually impossible to get them in Velen. So if you really want, that's something you can try. But with the loading times for how long it takes to maybe not something I normally recommend. I didn't even recommend it on my Deathmarch walkthrough, because you can cope without. And another thing, kind of unrelated, but like you can get a greater red mutagen you can get a greater red mutagen just from going to Toussaint early, and you can get one from Goliath, and that's relatively easy to do. It just needs a crossbow and a bit of patience. Something else that you can do if you wanted to get a greater red mutagen early on, and that negates the need a little bit for having those. So again, we've got Gourmet active, so it can be a little don't have to be quite as careful dodging these things as we would do otherwise. Get a few hits in while they're in the correct form. So I'll just get a little more damage by using the enhanced thunderbolt again. And getting hits in. So if you can dodge their strikes whilst they're in Erden, and you can pretty easily get them to take a form where you can hit them. And they don't do tons of damage, especially compared to other enemies, so you can use your stamina regenerators on casting Erden instead of keeping Quen up, because they do seem to do a little bit less than regular stuff. So right, so assuming I've done this correctly and chose the option for Letho to not be here, this will be a relatively short quest, and you don't have to bother with the quest after it. And I think they have done, because otherwise there would be traps laid about, so. Bunch of wolves over that way. There is a Leshen in this area, so if you see that, it's probably a level 20 Leshen. You may need to run from that, because it would be pretty darn difficult to be able to beat a level 20 Leshen at the minute. You could absolutely do it, but I really don't fancy it on a No Armour playthrough, because they do literally kill you in one hit, so. Doable, but not much fun.
Look like twins. Old woman's brother. Must be.
Must be. So yeah. Carrying on looting all this stuff, which is absolute garbage. Don't really need any of this, never mind. There is actually some genuinely quite useful stuff to grab in here usually. You loot everything about here. Just gonna grab all this stuff. And like I say, if you choose the option where Leto survived at the end of Witcher 2, from either importing a save or from simulating it with the questions that you have for Morris, then Leto will be here, and there'll be a whole side, which is very interesting, but also quite time consuming, so I decided not to bother this time. So for now, there's nobody here. Just going to use the key.
Lived here once. Something here. A chest.
Take all those. Then carry on. So I think that's everything there. Can't remember which ones are worth 3 and which ones are worth 1 out of the florins and the orins, so I'm just going to check. Yeah, so florins are the ones that are worth 3, so that's 100 florins that you just got there. And that's extremely useful, so that's 300 crowns just for that little bit there. So this is another side quest that is definitely worth doing.
No one's been here in a long time.
A few other useful things as well. Grab all this stuff. Not too fussed about what that one's in there. Sometimes some stuff's really awkward to pick up, but I highly doubt it's going to be dimeritium or anything like that, so I can live.
Skeleton in a closet. A couple of pages missing. Bodies maybe torn out. Journal. And thus I die in darkness of hunger and thirst. Gods have mercy.
Pretty horrible way to go, really. Old bear hide. Can I be bothered getting that? Yes. Now that I know what it is, why not? Some stuff like that is really awkward to get, so Just knowing. Alright, got it in the end. ED by any stretch of any imagination, but I do like things to be all collected and everything else. Yeah, that's probably the lesson, so I'm going to steer well clear of that. Rome's quite a big area to the left, the west of Raiden Farm, and I believe it's the same one that can attack you in the Dragon Slayer Grotto. So, speaking of which, before we do anything else, we're about that. So I need to be thinking about the Griffin swords, because I'll want them ready so that I can use them right away at level 11. So, just going to go and try and do the Dragon Slayer Grotto quest for the Griffin gear. So, not that I'll be getting the Griffin gear, but so that I can get the swords. Now, truth be told, you can actually skip this bit, so it's not to get the swords, because I know exactly where the swords are. So, considering that, do I want to do this part or not? Now that I think about it, there's probably an alchemy recipe or two in this cave, so maybe it is worth doing. Yeah, we'll have a go. Worth re-upping, meditating, get my potions back and everything else. School of the Griffin there. Now there are a massive amount of wraiths in here first, so you got to take those out. So just try and get a bunch of hits in on those if you can. And if we take a few hits, we do have gourmet still, so. And these ones in here are also worth fighting, because there's recipes in here. Now, the other ones come in from the other room, but fighting two at once shouldn't be too bad, so I should still be able to manage it. Although I have taken a whole load of damage there, so if they get you in that spinning attack and you don't have room to dodge, then as you just saw there, it can be a little bit problematic, but if you're fighting two at once, but like, it's normally alright. They are piling up the damage at the minute. So if you can get one of them sort of like stun locked like that, they're not so bad. Normally you only fight them one at a time here, so don't be too worried about it. That other one just came in from the other room, which doesn't usually happen, to be honest. So you, even though you're fighting in an enclosed space, you're normally okay, because you're normally only fighting one of them. So, a few things to pick. Hope that one of these has an alchemy recipe in, because it normally does. Enhanced Draconid oil, that's quite useful. Although that is one of the very, very few oils that you do pick up for free later in the game. You get that from Eskel. In the first Kaer Morhen section of the game, when he's trying to track a forktail, you can pick that one up. So I would recommend that you only make the regular Draconid and just maybe wait until later. Now that, however, is exactly what I want. And this is why it's always really important to explore, because you never know where a particular alchemy recipe is going to be. And I love enhanced toenails, so just going to make that. And that's extremely useful, because obviously that's probably my most used potion, as you'll have been seeing through this.
Damn, you're ugly.
And try and draw these out here, because they're easier to fight here. When you're just fighting one, wraiths really aren't too bad at all. Like, they're perfectly manageable as long as you avoid that spinning attack, which you can do. I'm just being pretty lazy here, so you know, it is eminently possible. Now for this bit, you don't want to be using your torch to see properly, because it will ignite the gas, and you want to be making sure that the gas is cleared as well. So should be alright with that, but yeah, use the cat potion actually. Toxicity should have died off by the time we get to fighting the vampire at the end of the cage. But even if it doesn't, I can live with it. So try and do as much damage to the wraiths as possible, because at some point the gas is going to come back. I'll need to use Ard again to be able to clear the gas. You can get a few hits in as well. I'm just going to make use of that enhanced Tornial there, because I do really need to be able to switch between Ard and Aiden for this bit while you fight the three of them. That, so this one's come outside, so I can actually kill this one outside of the tunnel, which is useful. And that's actually drawn them both outside, so able to defeat both of those. I've still got enough potions and everything else to be able to pretty comfortably beat the vampire at the end of this. Now this is an important thing to note. You can get attacked by the Leshen in here if you're very unlucky. So just going to meditate to get these back. One of the other things I just want to do is make sure that it's auto-save first, because this is one of the few Ekimaras in the game, and there really are quite few of these, so you need to make sure that when you're fighting them you get an Ekimara skin if at all possible, and maybe an Ekimara mutagen as well. So there's only a couple. There's this one, there's this one, there's the one in following the thread, and the other one. Now here I've just been pretty unlucky, and I think that's triggered the Leshen fight, so I'm going to have to see if it's followed me into this area, because you really don't want to be fighting the Leshen if at all possible into the cave from outside, and that's what just happened there. And so that's like you know, really important that you don't have to fight that thing, because it will kill you and you just end up running away. So it's very dangerous. Now another thing you can do with the Ekimara is if you can tag it with the moon dust like that, then you can do a good chunk of damage to that. Just going to pile up on my potions here, because I want to be trying burning this thing if at all possible. You can hear that Leshen, but hopefully it's not actually come into the area. Oh, but it has. Oh, I'm in trouble. I am in trouble. Right, so this just got a whole heck of a lot harder. Now this is why you want to save before you do this, because aside from the Ekimara is problematic enough, but like the real problem is the Leshen if it comes into the cave. So as you can see, it's Skull Enemy, and it's going to be very difficult. So let's just make sure that this is on here first. And we're going to have to see if I can get out of this, but they're probably going to kill me, to be honest. Yeah, but no shame in that. I'll just I'll try and see how it goes first. If I can take out the Ekimara, then I can try and hit the Leshen a little bit. I also get to test then if I can actually broadhead bolt, see how that inflicted bleeding on the Ekimara, so that's pretty useful. I want to make sure use of that as well, and do a little bit of damage there. I can actually get the Leshen to hit the Ekimara as well, which will be pretty useful. And I'm going to test if I can actually bleed the Leshen as well. Because bleeding on the Leshen too. So the Ekimara is down. Now it's this extremely powerful Leshen, which isn't supposed to be here, that's going to cause the problems. So I'm just going to have to see if I can do any damage to this thing. I can poison it with my blades, and I can inflict bleeding with my broadhead bolts. So, yeah, we're just going to have to see what we can do with this. Now, in theory, I would be able to maybe burn it as well. So I'll just have to with damage over time and see if I can stop it from, you know, doing this enormous amounts of damage that it will be doing to me. So whilst it's doing that roots attack, if I can actually get it damaged, then I can dodge out of the way. But I've used up all of my dancing star bombs, and as you can see there, it wasn't actually able to inflict burning on it. Now that might be because it's such a high level, I'm not really sure, but I've used all those up now, so no point me keeping those there. So we are going to have to just keep dodging and hitting this thing. Try and hit it with poisoning, which you can see does an absolute ton of damage, and that is why poisoning is such a strong thing. It's why one of the reasons I'm thinking about getting poisoning blades, and I can hit it with bleeding as well. So I can't really do a lot of direct damage to it, but if I can hit it with these statuses, then its own HP will work against it, and then I can focus my Quen up and trying to hurt it that way with the damage over time instead. So every time it does this, if I can dodge, I can get some good critical hits in, and I can just focus on wearing it down gradually. So I've taken off a reasonable amount of its health, so I might as well stick with it and see how we go. I've got a lot of toxicity left because of acquired tolerance. So I'm just going to use the cat potion so I can better see where it is as well, and keep track of it a little bit. I don't want to be going anywhere near this thing while I don't have Quen on, which is why I'm just very carefully watching that Quen meter. And this is the beauty of Quen, is like it will take any hits from you. It will take any hit, any one hit, regardless of how strong that hit would have been if it hit you. It will always take one hit, so that's extremely useful. Okay, so just going to take out the lesion if at all possible. And again, you saw that I hit it there, but it didn't actually get burnt. I'm just going to have to be a little bit careful with that because I can't inflict the damage from burning. I just got to keep use my sign intensity to keep Quen up instead. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep dodging and keep applying the poison, and then whenever I get the chance I'm going to use a broadhead bolt to try and inflict bleeding as well, and I can get as much damage as possible. So again, there it's bleeding, it's took a big chunk of damage from that, and I've got the superior Tornial, which you can see is like that, and is allowing me to keep my sign intensity up. Now one last thing that I can do is I can try and hit it with Dragon's Dream, and then burn it with Igni, because these things are really really susceptible to burning as well. So if you can get them burning, they take a ton of damage. But it's not worth me ever trying to cast Igni and losing my actual what's the word? It's not worth me ever losing my dying in one hit. So I think I should be able to take this thing out actually. So as you can see there, sometimes tactics will win out. So even though this cheeky thing ambushed me and I was on a level 11 quest and I'm using a no armor playthrough, I was still able to beat it, so that's pretty cool. Well, I say I'm going to beat it. I'm keeping Quen up at the minute, and it's looking like I should be able to. So don't despair if things do ambush you, or if there's something Red Skull that you really want to be able to beat. It doesn't necessarily mean being able to beat it. So just going to try and get poisoning on this thing one last time, and then that should be able to take it out if at all possible. You can actually use a moon dust as well to stop it teleporting about, so that can be useful as well. It's proven a little bit difficult at the minute. I might just use another broadhead bolt to try and bleed it and finish it off that way. Okay, so with that, we'll be able to take it out. Yeah, get down, sit. Right, that's pretty cool. So you better give me that mutagen. Right, so there I've got the Ekimara mutagen and the Ekimara hide, which is absolutely fantastic and exactly what I wanted. Right, so I'm just going to grab those. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you use things to your advantage in The Witcher 3 and use skills and tactics to do difficult fights. As you can see there, that was no armor, still deathmatch, in case anybody's wondering. And yeah, still able to take it on, so that's pretty cool. I'm pleased with that. Right, just going to make sure that I've got everything in here. and then use Nihilni's Eye to get out. So let's have a look. Grab all this stuff, and like I say, it was very useful that very good that I was able to get the Ekimara hide, and that lets me also make the Ekimara decoction, which is very useful. And you need one of those for the enhanced cursed oil, so useful that I got that as well. I'll make that. So the Griffin Skull Gear quest will update itself. I want to go and get the diagrams for those as well. And those will be my next port of call.
Where's that artifact cured?
Wyverns respawn there as well. This is only level 10 because it's matched to my level, so shouldn't have too much difficulty taking this out. Wyverns are quite susceptible to burning as well, so you can use that. Whenever I've got toxicity, I normally trying to make use of it. And with acquired tolerance, instead of just being able to pick between 2 or 3 potions, you can like quite easily use all the potions that you want in every fight. Excuse me. And then when you have so much alchest, this is where alchemy becomes really powerful, sort of like mid-game. Didn't burn it there, so again, I could be being a little more careful here, but I already know how much damage this thing's going to do to me, and that I can survive it quite easily, and that Gourmet will take it back in no time. So Wyvern hides again are something that can be very valuable if you sell them to the right alchemist, like the ones that give decent things. So that's another one that's really good. Now, I just want to check where I am now, because this next quest is like 1400 meters or feet or whatever it is away. So I want to be riding there or fast traveling, really. With it being such a long way, I actually might run back to the grotto and fast travel, so I think I'll do that. That fight against the Leshen was really good fun. That's the kind of in this playthrough. I hope you all enjoyed that kind of contest. And with that being level 22, if the ancient Leshen in Skellige is also susceptible to bleeding, then I could probably craft and use some broadhead bolts against that as well, and I might be able to take that down with the same thing, with poisoning and the broadhead bolts. Now that one's a little bit more tricky, a little trickier, because you have to fight that one outside. Obviously that had teleported into the cave, so it didn't seem to be able to call any cave, whereas not necessarily, that's not a problem for the ancient Leshen that you fight in Skellige. But it gives me a bit of hope that I might be able to take it on and try it with the right tactics. Maybe a little bit later on. So that might be something I try when we get to Skellige, or if I go there really. Right, okay, so I'm just going to fast travel now. And then I can get the diagrams for the Griffin Steel and Griffin Silver swords. Now, after I've got these diagrams, I'll go and make the swords. I'll actually carry them with me so that at level 11 I can equip them straight away. Although, usually I will also dismantle the Viper swords and get the Divana runestones out of those and put them into the Griffin swords, because those are extremely useful. Okay, so we've got some Indragas here to take out. Those are level 11, same as the quest. So I'll just use my Insectoid there. And should be able to make fairly short work of this thing. And again, I've got all my potions available for, because of acquired tolerance. and hopefully next time I hit them with Igni, I'll be able to burn a couple of them as well. And you do need to be, again, a little respectful of those. As you can see, it's just poisoned me there as well. So one of the potions that I don't have to make use of very early in the game, but can still be useful, is this Golden Aureole potion, which can be very helpful for making sure that you don't take any poisoning. And also, if you do get inflicted with poisoning and you can't cast Quen right away, it's very useful for stopping the poison as well, because if you are poisoned, it immediately stops the effects, and then it stops you getting poisoned for the rest of the duration of the potion as well. The superior version of that is absolutely fantastic. The superior version actually, the superior version is a lot of fun, and it actually heals you when you're taking poison damage. So you can use that to your advantage by doing things like throwing a superior devil's puffball, a thing like that, throwing a poison bomb, and then whilst it's poisoning the enemies, you can stand in the cloud and get additional healing as well. I'm sure that's a tactic we'll make use of at some point, because that's another useful one to do. Okay. I just want to grab all this stuff. There is, I think, a ladder here somewhere as well. I don't need Kira's lamp right now in the way, so I'm just going to get rid of that. So all I ever really need is the torch, and then later on I'll usually make use of the horn that you get from Hjalmar that knocks the sirens out of the air. That's really useful when you're in Skellige. Nice little poem there. I'll not read it to you because I think it's in Elven or something else, so not much point really. Slightly macabre scenes as usual. Not let me change signs for some reason, which is a bit weird. Okay, so just going to grab these things. Can't remember if this is the castle that has all of the harpies on the roof, but I think it is, so. Got my hybrid oil there. It is. Now you can knock these out of the air with all sorts of stuff. They get knocked out of the air by Axii, by by Ard, and by Igni. So Igni's good if you, because then you can inflict burning on them, like I just did there, which is useful. And Ard and Axii are extremely good because they can let you get an instant kill on them as well. So. Now if you can knock them out of the air with either Ard, Axii, Igni or a counter, you can obviously get an instant kill on them if they remain stunned long enough as well. Now, I just missed it on that one, so I didn't get the instant kill on it, but they're relatively low health. I'm able to deal with them quite effectively anyway. And they're all gone down there. So there is one more there. And because it's just one by itself, I'll try and wait for it to come down and then Axii it and see if I can get an instant kill on it. But even if not, I can get a good few hits in it. I'm able to take it out as it's trying to take off there. Okay, so I should get the diagram for the Griffin, one of the Griffin swords here. Can't remember which is which because I always get them both together. I would heartily recommend that you get these in any playthrough unless you are restricting what gear you're using and other stuff like that. Because they're just really, really great swords. For the level, they will always be pretty much the most damaging swords. The only one that is if you get a Teotoka steel sword, and that's only because it has an absurd 35% bleeding chance, which is absolutely ridiculous. That probably is one of the best steel swords, depending on... but that's a relic drop, so you can't be guaranteed to get it. And there's no guarantee of what level you get it at, or if it's, you know, a usable level, or even useful outside of the bleeding. So, always good idea to get these as well. So I've got five or six pieces of that. So next I'm going to want to make my way back down this castle. Grabbed everything here as far as I'm aware, destroyed the monster nest and all that stuff. And I'll just want to go and get the other sword diagram now. And that'll be that. We'll be coming up on the end of the episode on that. Might have to call it a day very shortly, depending on when my lovely significant other returns home. But I think we've had a good episode. I really enjoyed that fight against the Leshen, even though I wasn't actually looking for it. So yeah, I'm going to call that a day there. I will pick it up getting that sword diagram the next time. And if you're watching on YouTube, please do like, comment and subscribe for more videos. Thank you very much, and you all have a good day on the path.